First, let's just talk about Metroidvania real quick. Um,
Text my therapist.
yeah, I think we're gonna differ on this one, but
Yeah, maybe.
Metroidvania, what is it? I guess that's really the problem, isn't it? But to me, Metroidvania is non-linear platforming. I think that might actually be it to me. Maybe if you add exploration based non-linear platforming.
With
Anything else
RPG elements.
anything else you add to it starts even that to me starts making it go haywire. But yeah, you could say with RPG elements, and I'm a little bit hesitant to say that, but that's to me that's what it is non-linear exploration based platforming.
So isn't that just Metroid?
Um yeah, it's more
Or just
Metroid,
Zelda?
but to me, what makes Castlevania what it is more the Metroid style. The RPG to me is not as important. Now I'm going to pass it off to you because I know you don't necessarily love the term, but when you hear Metroidvania, what are you thinking?
Mine is your definition just with things that make an RPG an RPG. Stat upgrades and equipable weapons and armor.
But wouldn't that take Metroid out of the equation?
Yeah, which is why it's not just a Metroid, it's a Metroidvania, which is inherently, I disagree with this term, but just for the sake of what the phrase is used to describe or depict, it's those type of games. Games with like a distinct progression in terms of your character and your growth. And I don't necessarily mean in like a vague way, like with like, Link and hearts or, Samus and, energy containers. I mean, like, where you're leveling up. Because that's what happens in Symphony of the Night. That's where this term was born from.
Yeah, I think maybe if I changed it to where because I'm hesitant with the RPG element part, but maybe if I added, I'd be more comfortable with character growth because in that way then it
Mm.
encompasses both to me where Metroid is like maybe it doesn't level up, she doesn't level up, I guess, Samus, she doesn't level up per se, but she gets strong more missiles and she gets more health and she gets more a new item that does this, and through growth you progress throughout the game.
So is Zelda a Metroidvania?
Well, it'll be side scroller. The side
Oh, it
scroller.
has to be a side-scrolling
Yeah,
game to be a
to
Metroidvania.
me,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Because
So
if
is
you,
Metroid a Metroidvania?
yeah, to me,
Oh.
um, examples that feel like they borrow it but aren't, like Dark Souls is very Metroidvania, except that it's not a side scroller, so I don't really consider it one. Although it certainly takes some of those elements. In fact, I think most at this point, most like action games probably pull from this to some extent. So
We just played Resident Evil 2, which
yeah,
has a Metroid map. It
right.
has item-based progression.
Yeah, yeah.
Is Resident Evil a Metroidvania?
That's not a side scroller. To me,
Nowadays, people are using this to say 3D Metroidvanias.
well, if
So
they
like,
add 3D to it, I think it's fair. But once you're doing that, you're I mean, just like adding RPG to something, you're kind of bastardizing it, which is
yeah,
it
which is what
happens.
this term is. This is a bastardization.
Yeah, yeah. It's a finicky term, which all terms in games are mostly finicky at this point because we got into
Yeah,
such a level of in gaming where you can now easily combine them. Like back in the day, Final Fantasy was basic. That was an RPG, and you couldn't really. They weren't doing like huge things where you could combine all this, but like Mario was Mario and Final Fantasy was an RPG.
yeah,
Nowadays, it's so muddy and everything's combined. Partially because of this game that we're playing,
yeah,
is they were like, let's add RPG elements to it. It's like, yeah,
yeah. I agree with that assessment. I think most genre names are like meaningless. An adventure game? What you go on an event action? You game with action?
Dude, adventure. I don't even know what an adventure game is now. I guess to me, adventure is like point and click almost. Like,
That's a type of adventure.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
everything's an
I
adventure.
mean,
That's
what?
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Most meaningful genre names are like, uh, I guess like racing, you
Hmm.
know, or like I think they're very like granular. But when you go into these more abstract ones,
Yeah.
I think even puzzle is ambiguous.
Right. Right. Because I mean, you could make a very strong argument that SMT is more of a puzzle game than an RPG, especially three,
Mhm.
because the bosses are so like they're not even based on damage almost. Like half of them are based on like knowing the pattern and understanding what will do what when you use it. So like they're almost just more puzzle games than RPGs. It's crazy how much all these terms are now combined into one, which is good. It's a good thing. It's a good thing because the people that make these games are being creative and finding new ways to employ it.
Those genres don't, the problem they don't have is being distinctly associated to two specific video game
That's true.
franchises.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting when something happens like that, like Souls like. We get that now,
Right.
Rogue like, because like there was a game I believe called Rogue that's pioneered that. Um, so it's weird when it's like one, it's like a specific game. Because then you, when they're named after the game, now you're like, this wasn't in Castlevania, so how could you call it a
Yeah.
Metroidvania? Like now it's like it makes it a weird conversation because yeah, you're right. It's like that's the game that it's supposed to emulate.
And what further complicates this term is it like appeals to the second rift, Castlevania fans, not the first.
Right, it completely alienates the people from the before this, where it was like just a side scroller, because they're like, this is literally Castlevania, and it's like, no, it's not.
Not by
Not
Castlevania.
now. Your experiences are nullified.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see how
So
people. Yeah, just it doesn't. It's very difficult.
it's not even that I'm that passionate about either Metroid or Castlevania. I actually think the Metroid phrase makes more sense than Castlevania logically, if you just think about it. It's just like a lack of critical thought when using the term and just like the how quick people are to adopt it.
Hmm. And of course, Igarashi says it's a Zeldavania, so there you go. Who knows what the right answer is?
Yeah. Well, they call Bloodstained an Egavania.
Oh my god.
Oh, they say Egavania returns. I think that's like on the box or something.
Ah, jeez.
Uh,
Well,
Actually, the phrase, if you want to know what the people in Japan say, they call this genre search action. They don't use the phrase Metroidvania.
search action, like an exploratory action game.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm down with that.
And then it stemmed from a certain game. I wonder if I can get this up real quick. Search action games origin. History, while not the first game of its kind, uh, Metroid is generally considered the most influential in the Metroidvania genre. This is from the wiki on Metroidvania. Have it. So someone in the comments, you can get bonus points for naming it.
Okay. Yeah, put in the comments if you know the original search action game.